You're listening to Beyond Insights, your go-to podcast for all things accounting, business, and technology.
From cybersecurity and AI innovations to sustainability and work-life balance, we've got you covered.
We host insightful guests from different backgrounds, industries, and locations all around the world.
From this diversity of thought, we aim to find solutions to some of our most pressing business problems.
Thank you for tuning in. Let's dive right in and go beyond insights.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. Today we are joined by Neil Criddle, who is the founder of Neil's Data Consultancy, or NDC. Neil started his practice in 2020, and he provides small business owners with insightful analysis and automated processes to improve their productivity and efficiency while achieving increased levels of performance and profitability. What I really love every time that I speak to Neil is I notice how his personality really shines through in everything that he does. So from helpful accounting videos on social media featuring an array of Lego Star Wars characters and his dog and also cat to his personable client meetings, Neil really strives to create long-lasting partnerships that focus on collaborative working while making finance fun. So thanks so much for joining us today, Neil.
Thanks for the intro. That was awesome. Thank you.
Sure. So today we're talking about all things entrepreneurship. So I thought maybe I would start off by saying, what propelled you to start your own business? Can you share the sort of moment or experience that made you decide to take the leap from working for someone else to opening your own practice?
Yeah, I guess, so I've got an industry background and not a practice background, and I've kind of mainly worked for large corporate firms. But it was kind of around 2018, I was working for a veterinary, quite a large veterinary group, but they were quite small when I joined. And kind of the crux of my role, I was traveling around the UK, I was visiting veterinary practices, and I was giving commercial finance, business partnering advice to the owners of these businesses. You know, we were a large group, but they managed their own veterinary practice within this group. And it was really uplifting to kind of give that sort of advice to essentially small business owners themselves, and to try and sort of, better the performance of their small veterinary business by giving, dashboards, management reporting, KPIs, and all of that kind of stuff. And that was really, really interesting. And as the company grew very quick. It was private equity backed. It grew very quick, and sadly, the atmosphere kind of tailored off a little bit. It became more corporate, but I never stopped liking the work. So that kind of, I guess, sowed the seed at the beginning to go, how can I keep doing this sort of work with small business owners, but kind of work on my own terms and not having to kind of pander to kind of corporate life. So that's kind of where that sort of idea came from, I guess.
Awesome. And if you think about kind of the characteristics that maybe you have or that other entrepreneurs have, do you think that there's specific characteristics that really pay off as an entrepreneur? And do you think they can be developed, or is this something sort of innate to people?
I guess there's a certain amount of kind of natural ability, I guess, that you would perhaps need to have in order for it to come sort of easier than most, I guess, for it not to be a forced thing to get into. I guess for me, some of the key areas were things like my personality. You've already touched upon that in that amazing intro that you did. So kind of being personable, thinking outside the box. I've always wanted to work with other departments when I had jobs, right? So I wanted to work with marketing and IT, and I wanted to give kind of more business orientated advice and not just talk about kind of the numbers. So being personable, thinking outside the box, working hard. I come from a very staunch working class background. My parents always worked. I worked as soon as I left school. So, that's always kind of been bred in me to kind of do a hard day's work and sort of, fulfill passions and do things that you like. And then I guess making sacrifices. Having never run a business before and also not working in an accounting practice before, didn't really quite understand the early challenges of what that would look like. And we'll come on to how COVID kind of affected that, starting the business basically 2 months before that happened. So I've got a young family, and recording this podcast, I'm here over the other side of the country in London, to where I'm from. I was in Manchester at Accountex a couple of days ago. So, I travel, I see clients, I work hard, and, there are some sacrifices that I've had to have made. But I think those kind of four things combined have led to kind of this business being a success. And I do think it's, that kind of entrepreneurial mindset is kind of factored in all of these things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of it, as you say, there are certain sacrifices that you need to make, but it all kind of pays off in the end.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do you have any sort of practical tips or strategies that other people might want to try if they're thinking of starting their own practice?
Yes, it's a difficult one because, like I said, the first, 18 months of my business journey was in COVID. And I learned so much so fast just running a business and understanding tech and dealing with HMRC, let alone all of the different guidance that was around, all of the furlough schemes, the loan schemes that were in place during COVID. Lots of people panicking with their businesses. So I kind of had to put quite a let's say kind of like an agony uncle type hat on to sort of give reassurance and empathy, whilst kind of only just starting a business and not understanding or not figuring out if this was going to work for me long term, and having my own kind of family issues with COVID. So I guess kind of when starting, don't overthink it. I lost my job, which was the catalyst for starting the business, and I didn't have enough time to think. I didn't really have enough time to plan too much. I just sort of went in with it with 2 feet, with a kind of a bit of a plan that says, look, I've got a passion for doing this sort of work, and I want to deliver amazing customer service. And I think everything else just sort of worked itself out, and I just kind of held strong with those two kind of outlooks, really. And I think in terms of like the early days, like maybe the first 6 months, it was all about attracting clients however I could. I still do a lot of video content, but, I started my Facebook group a month after starting the business. I was doing a lot of video content around trying to get across who I was as a person and what my purpose was and why I started this business and what my aspirations were. And I think, locally to me in my town, like the other accountancy firms, don't really do any social media. They don't do any kind of personal branding, and they certainly don't do any video content. So I kind of managed to make myself stand out, which led to people finding me. And then after 6 months, I had acquired enough clients to then take another look at the business and go, we can reinvest in tech and make us more efficient, and we can heighten the service for our clients because we're using amazing tools like, the likes of Sift Analytics or some accountancy software or some other bits and pieces that perhaps we wouldn't have had the money to have done early on. So I think don't stress too much about it in terms of having a plan is great, but the best plans sometimes just never come to fruition, and you have to pivot and you have to adapt, and that's certainly happened with me.
Yeah, I think that's quite an amazing story. It sounds like a very stressful start, but kind of taking that stressful situation and turning it into an opportunity and thinking, how can I differentiate myself from other firms? What are they not doing? Like the social media marketing, the video content. And I think also showing who you are as a person and what your ultimate goals are, I think is very important, because at the end of the day, yes, people are coming to you for help with their accounting, but they also, they're entrusting you with their financial information, which is really, really important. So they want to know that you're trustworthy as well.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of kind of common pitfalls that people often fall into when they start up their own business, what are some of these that you can think of, and how do you think that new entrepreneurs can navigate the complexities of setting up their practice and avoid these?
So I do some coaching on behalf of the Value Pricing Academy, which is a membership community that's led by Mark Wickersham, who's quite well known in the industry. And I see the same kind of comments and queries around generating business, and a lot of people struggle to generate business. And I think, some of the things that we really focus on are really around pricing and marketing. And I think those two things are, I guess, sometimes the areas that people find more difficult to understand. For me, I mean, I've always been fairly active on social media with my personal interests, like my music, my Lego, my sports. And I just tried to kind of lift that personality and the way of doing social media into my business. I didn't really change who I was or what I was doing. I was just, kind of giving financial information, but trying to sort of layer it with my personality and my family and my background. And again, coming back to my purpose. And a lot of people get over kind of have the query around, well, I haven't got enough time to do social media. That's kind of one of the common ones. Or, I don't have enough ideas. And I guess, if you're trying to be a true entrepreneur, I think that ideas thing is, it will always come. I think I very rarely struggle to think of ideas. I've got a notes app on my phone. Every time I got an idea, I take a picture of something or I write it down in my notes app. And then if I'm ever struggling for content, which never really happens, but if I get a bit of a dry day or two, I go to that notes app and I've got all of these ideas and all these thought points that I could perhaps create some content around. I've always tried to do stuff from my heart, so I've not tried to sound too scripted when I do video content. Most of my videos are live, so there's no real kind of script to adhere to. It's kind of in the moment, and I think that really helps as well. I see a lot of content online where people are reciting HMRC guidance, or they're talking about a rule, or talking about something tax related, and it's really dry, and you can just tell they're just kind of reading from the script. So I think try and sort of get away to kind of capture some ideas. Again, coming back to the planning aspect, try not to plan it too much, like be natural, be authentic. I always say to everything, just be yourself. People, the right people will gravitate to you, rather than try to be somebody that you're not, because you may then attract the wrong sort of person. And then that kind of factors into the pricing side and figuring out how you price. And that will be an evolution. I'm still learning almost 5 years in now. What I did do at the start was to never price by the hour and to give clients options give prospects options when they came to me. And that way I can sort of understand where their sort of price point is around what sort of service level that they want. So we're maximizing the fees that we can get from prospects, but at the same time, we're not hamstringing us by saying, well, we're going to conform to an hourly price bidding where, if we do work quicker, that's going to look bad on us because we're not going to be able to bid as much. So that commercial mindset around being an entrepreneur, along with kind of the tactics around pricing, I think those are the common challenges that I see quite a lot.
And in terms of when you got started, what were some of your main challenges? Obviously, there was COVID. Are there any other, or I guess was COVID the biggest challenge, or were there sort of some unexpected challenges that you had to face?
Yeah, I mean, COVID was one, obviously. So, I lost my job on the 15th of January 2020, and I went full-time the day after, pretty much. So there was the January tax window in the UK, so there was 2 weeks left. I had some tax returns to do, and we had a couple of late notice tax returns. I was kind of like busy-ish for those 2 weeks. I set up the Facebook group in February. I did a networking event in person in my local town in February, and that was the only local in-person networking event that I did before lockdown happened. Oh. And so, I come from a town it's not too small, but it's also not too big. And because of the work that I've done in other friendship groups, I kind of already knew a fair amount of people. I knew some business owners. And so it's just a kind of a way to, again, kind of get my name out there and tell people, look, I've started this accountancy business. I've got a passion for trying to help people understand their numbers. If you're struggling with your accountant, if you're only having a once or a twice a year conversation, then let's have a chat and let's see what we can do for you. And that was kind of my mantra really right at the beginning. And then, like you said, COVID happened, lockdown happened. Within probably a month or two, I had my children at home. So we were homeschooling our children. I'm very fortunate that I had a room in my house that was my office. I could sort of shut the door, but it was very difficult to focus and concentrate with everything going on in the world, and my kids not being at school, and my wife at home as well. So it was very tricky. It was very tricky. I managed to get a few clients in between the January and March so that we could effectively pay our bills. And then when COVID happened, I just had the automatic thought that everybody was going to leave us because of COVID. But actually what happened was the complete opposite. And like I said, a lot of the accountancy firms buy us just don't do any content. And actually some furloughed staff, they weren't answering emails or phone calls. And so I was doing the opposite. I was being visible online and I was answering emails and I was trying to put myself out there as much as I possibly could, from home. And people saw that, they gravitated to it. I did a couple of webinars during lockdown with panels of people. So local business owners just kind of talking about the environment, COVID, how they were getting on, what relief was available to them, sort of some tips and tricks. And I probably did half a dozen of those sort of once a month throughout that kind of summer of 2020 into kind of 2021. And that really helped. But yeah, I didn't really understand what being a business owner truly was about until probably 18 months in, when COVID sort of went, kind of died down a little bit, and, the lockdown rules had been relaxed. And at that point, I could go out and about and see people and meet some clients. I'd signed a lot of clients. I never met them for like a year, 18 months, and some of them maybe even 2 years. So it was about getting out and seeing some of these clients that we'd signed alongside, continuing to grow the business.
Yeah, it's a strange thought. It's also kind of something that was similar for us at SIFT, that sort of opened up new possibilities because everyone got more comfortable being online. But it is strange to not meet your clients in person for such a long time.
Yeah.
Is there anything, like looking back now, that you think you would do differently if you were to start over again?
I think, COVID might have been a perfect storm for me, and the stars might have aligned at that time. But had I had known the last 5 years would have gone as well as it had done, then I would have started this journey a lot sooner. I've been qualified since 2012. I feel like I've had the skills to do what I'm doing now for a long time. I just never had the confidence. And who knows, if I hadn't lost my job, I might still be there, or I might still be, working in a 9 to 5 with a long commute, as we are now. So I feel really blessed to have been given a really negative situation, a really negative scenario. It was really mentally tough at the time. It was my third redundancy actually as well in 10 years. So it was a process that I'd been through before. But not with a young family. And, with my wife being a stay-at-home mum, I was the sole breadwinner. So it was really difficult. But I think, I probably wouldn't change anything if I'm being truly honest, because I might not be where I am now. But if there was one thing I had to put my heart on, it would probably be to back yourself a bit more, get a bit more confidence, and, try any way, shape or form to just do your passion and just do what you believe in.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of these negative life events that happen that, like you say, they seem very negative at the time, but they actually just change the trajectory of your career or of your life. So hard to think about life without them.
Yeah.
For those who are maybe accounting students or young, hopeful entrepreneurs who are just sort of starting out, what advice would you give them?
I would try to be as visible and as interactive online as possible. I think one of the things that I found quite early on, because, I do a lot of social media and I find it really interesting, is that I started to network with other accountancy firm owners that were similar to me in terms of mindset. I found out about a lot of software and a lot of technology that maybe ordinarily I might not have found had I not attended webinars and online conferences. So I think, like, people coming out of education system, I guess the natural transition would be to go to an accountancy practice and would try and, get an apprenticeship or some form of kind of junior trainee role. And I still see, disappointingly, I do feel like we as modern firm owners are still a minority. I see a lot of people in practice that have a partnership model, and that level of learning and that kind of habitual way of running a practice permeates down, and it goes through, managers, senior managers, assistants, and all the way into trainees and apprenticeships. And I get the feeling that people think that there is a certain way of getting into the industry and a certain way of working. But I think that's one of the things that I've really tried to hone in on with my team, is that, we don't have to conform to stereotypes. We can run this business how we want to. The main thing for me is that we're delivering an amazing service to our clients. Like, how we do that is, it's entirely up to us how we do that. We don't wear suits. we have fully flexible working. We see clients. We don't have to be too formal in meetings. Kind of our billing structure, I think, is quite sort of modern in terms of, we don't charge by the hour. We don't charge for every single meeting that we have. It's not that kind of archaic. It's more a way of saying, how can we make this as easy as possible for our clients whilst delivering really, really good service? And, as a result of that, I've got an amazing team, some of which have worked in a practice before, some of which haven't. But I think the combined kind of mentality of them is that it's a really refreshing place to work. They can see that we're trying to be on the cutting edge of the tech that we're using and our mindsets and the way that we're delivering work to our clients. And, our social media exposure and, kind of the branding that I've managed to build over 5 years has meant that we've had a diverse range of clients all over the country. And, we're not, just kind of pigeonhole ourselves to, the construction trades within our local town, or, we're sort of really spreading our reach in terms of what we can do and who we can do it with. And that's producing really interesting, varied roles for all of my team members. And there's, plenty of room for growth and progression within that as well. So kind of a long-winded answer, really, but I would really encourage people that want to get into the industry, don't worry if you don't have qualifications. Don't worry if you're young. Just go online, go on LinkedIn, try and find some of the more, I guess, influencer type accounting types. But, there are certain names that you can go to some conferences and sort of network with some vendors like the likes of Sift, Xero, etc. And you will find those people that regularly get called out in terms of being at the forefront of the industry.
I think that's really, really cool. I know that there are, I've read so many articles about how accounting isn't as popular for students to study anymore, and people are worried that there's going to be a shortage of accountants, and that part of that is because there's this sort of stereotype that if you're working as an accountant, it's going to be boring, you're going to be wearing the suit and tie, it's going to be very old school. So I think it's really exciting that you are thinking out of the box, and that there are all these opportunities with technology and collaborating with other accountants. So I think that's really positive. I was wondering, in your job, is there something that sort of brings you the most satisfaction, or something that you found really rewarding?
I think more so the relationships, in terms of finding people that are similar to us in lots of different industries, but they're all entrepreneurs in their own right. And, I've got lifelong friends now from, having this business for the last almost 5 years. I've just come back from a Caltex conference in Manchester where I met, several people who, if it weren't for the business, I wouldn't have known. And, I wouldn't have had amazing experiences with some of those people, both clients and, peers who own other firms, and also, my suppliers, my software vendors, that have been really, really inspirational and really influential as well within my journey. So yeah, for me, it's about making relationships, and again, just going back to my passion and my purpose to deliver amazing client experience. And I think that's shows in the loyalty that we've got with our clients, and the fact that we can, in our kind of simple layman's terms, we could do accounts, we could do tax returns, and we follow a relatively routine kind of procedure to give information to clients, bespoke in some ways depending on who they are and what they do. But for us, it's this is our day to day, this is our bread and butter. But for our clients, we are genuinely changing some of our clients' lives for the better, and that's really really heartwarming to see. Something that you just think is just kind of the norm is really, really having just such a massive impact on other small business owners. And I think that, combined with forging relationships that, we'll have these clients for years and years and years. And if I should ever sell my business, or if they should ever sell their business, we'll still keep in touch. We'll still be friends. I think, that's really important for me.
Yeah, I think that's really fantastic. And I know giving back to the community is also quite important to you. So I was wondering, how do you balance running your business and giving back to the community? I know you have Business for Good, as I saw on your website.
Yeah, I think, coming from a position where, I had no money, I had no clients, and I didn't really have an idea of what I was doing in the first kind of early months. To be in a position now where we're still growing, and learning, but we've grown a really successful business. I've got a team of 8 people now, all in a short amount of time. We're delivering so much positive change for our clients. I think it's, I'm kind of privileged to be sat here to say, well, we can afford, like, financially and in terms of time, to give something back. So we do a lot of local things. I sponsor a couple of local football teams, both adult and youth. And I think, that's really important for me. I'm really keen on my sport. And that's always something that I've been quite passionate in. We do a lot of charitable things with CIC organisations close to home. So whether that be I give my time pro bono, or I help with some accountancy related query, or I just give my time and do some mentoring or give some support. I sponsored an award ceremony a couple of months ago for underprivileged children. So things like that, I think I found it really important and really cool to do. And when I was a kid, and we're talking a long time ago now because I'm getting on, but like 25, 30 years ago when I was at secondary school, there wasn't a lot of careers advice. There wasn't really an awful lot of direction, support. So one of the things that I do is I partner with both my old secondary school and other schools in the area and the local college to give support and to give advice, come in to do assemblies for children. We recently I did one last year, I'm doing it this year. I did the Dragon's Den panel where the children will come in to pitch an idea as part of their qualification, and then me and a few other business owners sit on a panel to evaluate their ideas. So that was really, really, really interesting to do, and to give back to those kind of educational bodies. And again, around the mentoring piece and the careers guidance, to say, look, if you ever want to come into the accountancy industry, it doesn't have to be the way that you think it might be. It can be different. And then I guess more nationally, you mentioned Business for Good, yeah. So B1G1 is an organisation that I've been using really since the beginning. And for every new client that joins us, we do a little donation across the world. They have global projects and initiatives. It could be planting trees, it could be giving food, it could be educational tasks, it could be gender equality, it could be the environment, rainforest. So there's all sorts of different projects that we can get involved with. And again, if we get a client in the business, that means that we win. So where can I see fit to make a win elsewhere? And that's something that we will continue to do as well.
I think that's a really, really great perspective, looking at how you are now growing and you are able to give back to others. And I'm sure, all of the school children and the other members of the community that you've worked with will really appreciate it. And it also opens up their eyes to possibilities of what they might want to do one day.
Yeah, exactly that. And actually, it's great for me, resourcing talent as well, because we're so visible online that, if I post a job role, or, if people are interested in getting into the industry, then we've never struggled to find really, really good talent, because, we're visible, and we demonstrate an attractiveness for people to get into the industry.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I guess as we kind of wrap up things today, if there was only one thing that someone who's listening or watching was to take away from today's episode, what would you want them to take away?
Oh, crikey, one thing. I would say to back yourself. If you've got an idea that you want to start a business, but whether you come from a practice background or not, I think you have to back yourself. You have to have that level of confidence to make the video content, to put yourself out on social media, because those are going to be the quickest ways of growing your business. If you sit at home and not do anything online, people are going to really struggle to find out who you are or what your purpose is. So just get some confidence and back yourself, I would say. Yeah,
I think really, really important. And don't wait until you feel that everything is perfect. Just, start. You can iterate and reiterate.
And that will never happen either. Even some of the software that we roll out, we'll get it to 70 or 80% good, and then we'll roll it out, and then we'll do the tweaks. If we waited till it got to 100%, we would never innovate. So yeah, that's really good point.
Absolutely. Wait until it's good enough.
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us today, Neil, and thank you everyone who's been watching. Really appreciate this conversation, and I think it's an amazing story that you have, starting during COVID, starting with something that was so negative and turning this around into an amazing business that you actually really enjoy being a part of, and that also gives back to the community. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
That's great. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast. Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now.
And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast.
That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.